Chains in the dust and snow. I still remember the bite of iron against my skin that morning, the weight of chains that felt heavier than the very mountains rising beyond the plains. The dust clung to my dress, torn and ragged, while patches of snow glittered cruelly in the sunlight, reminding me of everything pure and free I no longer was. My wrists burned where the cuffs dug into me, my hands raw and bloodied. I was barely 20, yet the world had already pressed me down into the dirt like I was nothing more than another broken soul on the frontier. And yet, my heart still beat with hope, faint and fragile, like the flicker of a lantern in the wind. I was chained to the wheel of a wagon in the center of town. Folks passed by, some pretending not to see, others stealing quick, pitying glances before turning away. To them, I was just another girl caught in the harsh justice of the West. Guilty or innocent didn't matter much when men with guns held all the power. My tears had long dried in the dust, but that day was different. Because he was there. The first time I saw him, he stood just beyond the sunlight, hat low over his eyes, broad shoulders squared as though the whole world rested on him. His clothes spoke of hard work and long miles on the trail, boots caked in dust, vest worn but sturdy. He wasn't like the others. His eyes, though hidden in shadow, seemed to look right into me, past the dirt, the blood, the chains. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel invisible. I remember trembling, afraid of what he might say, or worse, what he might do. Men had only brought me pain, after all. My father had died in the war, and the ranch we once called home had been swallowed by debt. I thought I'd found kindness in a man who promised me safety, only to be betrayed, traded, and left to suffer at the mercy of men who wanted nothing more than control. That's how I ended up there, bound in the dust and snow, like a prize on display. But this stranger, he stepped closer. His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of someone who'd seen both blood and mercy. "You don't belong here," he said. My throat tightened. No one had spoken to me like that in so long, not with truth, not with care. I wanted to believe him, but hope had become a dangerous thing. That night, I shivered beneath the wagon, the cold snow seeping through my thin dress. I thought of my mother's lullabies, the warm fire of our cabin back home, and the smell of bread baking in the hearth. Memories that felt like a dream, slipping further away with every breath. But then he came again, moving quietly in the dark. I heard the crunch of his boots in the snow before I saw him. He crouched low, his eyes catching the moonlight. In his hands, he carried water and a piece of bread, rough and torn, but it tasted sweeter than anything I'd ever known. "Eat," he whispered. I wanted to ask why. Why risk it, why care, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I ate in silence, tears stinging my eyes as the bread dissolved on my tongue. He stayed there, watching me, as if guarding me from the night itself. For the first time in weeks, I slept without fear. The days stretched on, each one colder than the last. The townsfolk whispered, and the men who chained me grew restless. I knew what fate awaited me if no one intervened. But the stranger, his name was Matthew, I learned that much. He lingered always near. He spoke little, yet his presence was steady, grounding, like the earth beneath my feet. And slowly, something stirred inside me. Not just hope, but something deeper. Something tender, fragile, like a wildflower pushing through frozen ground. It was dangerous to feel it, dangerous to dream of love when I was nothing but a prisoner. Yet, in the way he looked at me, in the way his hand brushed mine when he slipped me food or water, I felt more alive than I had in years. The breaking point came on a morning colder than the rest. The snow had thickened overnight, the dust turning to mud beneath wagon wheels. I could see my breath in the air, each exhale trembling like my spirit. That was the day they meant to take me away for good. I heard the chains rattle as rough hands pulled me up. My body was weak, my legs unsteady. The world blurred with fear and cold, and I thought it was the end. But then, like thunder breaking across the plains, his voice rang out. "Let her go." The men froze. Matthew stood in the middle of the road, hand resting on the grip of his revolver, eyes burning like steel beneath the brim of his hat. The town fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. They laughed at first, mocking him. But when his gun cleared leather, swift and sure, the laughter died. I don't remember the shots, not clearly. The crack of gunfire echoed between the buildings, dust rising in clouds. I remember the heat of his arm pulling me close, the clatter of chains falling from my wrists, the sudden, dizzying rush of freedom. And then silence. Just his heartbeat, strong against mine. We rode hard out of that town, the snow biting at our cheeks, the horizon wide and endless before us. My chains lay broken in the dust behind. For the first time, the world seemed open, vast, filled with promise instead of pain. At the fire that night, I looked at him, really looked. His hands were rough, scarred from years of work, but when they brushed my cheek, they were gentle. His eyes held mine, and I knew then, I was no longer alone. The West had taken everything from me: home, family, even my freedom. But in the dust and snow, I had found something I never thought I'd feel again. Even now, years later, I can still feel the weight of those chains, but I can also feel the warmth of the hand that set me free. The frontier is cruel, unforgiving, but it has a way of forging hearts strong enough to endure it. And mine, though scarred, beats fiercely still for the man who saw me not as a prisoner, but as a woman worth saving, because sometimes, even in the dust and snow, love is the only thing strong enough to break the chains.